Do you ever find yourself manually colouring cell after cell in your Google Sheets, desperately trying to bring some order to the chaos? We've all been there, spending ages highlighting important data, only to have new information to mess it up. Well, there's a better way. In this video, I'll introduce you to the magic of conditional formatting. Imagine this: colours that automatically appear based on your data, instantly highlighting trends, outliers, or anything else you need to see at a glance. Plus, it automatically adapts to changes made to the sheet. And the best part? It's surprisingly easy to set up. So let's get started. Here I have some exam results and I want to highlight those who have passed. Select the range of data. Right-click and then click View More Cell Actions and choose Conditional Formatting. This opens up the Conditional Format Rules dialog box. Under Apply to Range, it shows us the range we just highlighted and the one which we're going to add the formatting to. The Format Cells If section is where the conditional rule is applied. By default, it applies the formatting to any cells that aren't empty, as the option Is Not Empty is selected. As I want a different condition, we need to change this. Click on Is Not Empty. This opens the various conditions. Click Greater Than, as we want to highlight those with an exam mark better than a minimum, i.e. they have passed. A box will appear below to type in the value. Let's type in 0.6, as I want to know who has more than 60%. Below this, you have a choice of formats. You can add bolding, italics, underlining, strike through, or you can change the font or cell color. I'm going to fill the cells with green for those who have passed. So I click on the fill box and the color palette opens. Just select the color you want. Then click Done at the bottom of the dialog box. As you can see, this colors all those above 60% in green. You can set more than one rule at a time. Let's color those who have failed in red. The process is very similar to before. Select the range. In the rules, you'll see the one you created before with a summary of what it does. Below it, click Add Another Rule. From now on, it's the same process as before, except we're going to select a different condition and color. Click Cell is not empty, then less than or equal to. Type in 0.6 in the value box that appears. This time, let's color it red by clicking on the fill color and selecting a shade of red. Now we have those who failed the exam highlighted in red. Also, we can see that we now have two conditional format rules. We can set up all sorts of conditions, and as you saw before, these can be combined in many ways. There are 5 groups. 1, is the cell empty or not? 2, text. What does it contain, start with, end with? Or does it match an exact word or phrase? 3, date. Does the date match another, or is it one before or after the specified date? 4, numerical. Is the number greater, less, equal, or between some numbers? 5, does the cell match a specified formula you've set? I think the first 4 groups are pretty self-explanatory and are set up in the same way I described before. The last one, however, custom formulas, is very different and can seem a little complicated sometimes. To show you how to use it, let's look at a useful example of a formula you can use. Here we have some performance results of some students. I want to highlight those who didn't achieve the minimum 50%. And this time, I don't want to just color in the performance figure. I want to color in the whole row. This is an example of where a custom formula helps. Select all your data, except the headers, as before. Right-click, click View More Cell Actions, and click Conditional Formatting. Click on Is Not Empty. At the bottom of the list of conditions, click on Custom Formula Is, then type in the following formula and click Done. Equals $D2 less than 0.5. Add red formatting. You will see that all the rows that contain a result of under 50% are now highlighted. Magic. So how did that work? Let's look at the formula and understand what's happening. The equal sign tells Sheets it's a formula. Then I tell it that if D2 is less than 0.5, i.e. 50%, then fill it red. The dollar sign, as we saw in the video on absolute references, makes sure that column D never changes as you move columns. But as the row number doesn't have a dollar sign, it can change as you move rows. So let's look at it cell by cell with the formulas showing. Let's start with row 2. In cell A2, the formula is still referring to D2, as the dollar sign made sure the column didn't change, even though we're in column A, and we are still in row 2. The same goes for cells B2 and C2. So all of them look at D2 to see if the value is less than 0.5, i.e. 50%, which it wasn't in this case, so it hasn't changed the color of any cells. Now let's look in row 3. In A3, we notice that the formula has changed to D3. This is because the dollar sign has prevented the column changing. But this time we are on the row below, and as there is no dollar sign next to the row number, it changes by 1 to row 3. This time, the cells in that row are looking at D3 to see if it is less than 50%, which again it isn't, and so on. Showing the values again, we can see that D5 was under 50%, so it coloured the row red. And by showing the formulas again, we can see that's because the cells in that row are looking at D5. Custom formulas give you greater scope to control how you format your data. You are not just limited to the preset list you are given. So far, we've been adding a single format per conditional rule, but we can also add a color scale based on a specific condition. For example, we can color the lowest values in red and the highest ones in green without having to set up separate rules. So let's do that with the same data set as before. Select the range and open the conditional formatting sidebar. This time, let's open it via the format menu and clicking conditional formatting. Then select the color scale tab. And this time we have different colored scales in the format rules section. As you can see, it's already colored the performance column, showing the worst results in white, then slightly better ones in light green, then a darker green, and the best results in dark green. So we can clearly see who's doing well or not. Click on the preview colors. As you can see, we have a choice of default color scales. Click on one to change the scale. At the moment, we can see that it's using the minimum value as the starting point for the min point, which is dark red, and it's using the maximum value as the end point for the max point, which is dark green. Plus, it's taking the value that's in the middle between the two to set a third color, white, which is what lightens the shade of the colors. You can also use conditional formatting across multiple rows and columns. For example, if you have a grid of data, you can also copy the conditional formatting setup on one range to another range or sheet. For example, I want to copy this conditional formatting to another class performance list for another class. Select the range and press Ctrl+C. Then select the cell at the top of the range, for example D2, and then right-click, select Paste Special, and then select Conditional Formatting Only. As you can see, it's applied the conditional formatting to this new range and has adapted to the new data. One of the best things about conditional formatting is that if the data changes, the colors will change automatically. It's a really useful tool.